Today is Friday, 20th of March, 2026. My name is Francisco Gaffney, and this is my daily streaming all about governance, risk, compliance, and advisory boards. So, this week I've taken you through scale, predictability, systems, and edge, right? So, today I want to do one thing. I want to put everything together because the final risk in a model like the one that I'm going to pull now on the screen is fragmentation. What I mean fragmentation is you can have a very, very good view uh, in isolation of how you scale a company, but then you have in isolation how you could be predictable in terms of your company revenue streams, your teams, and your branding, your assets. Then you have a fragmentation about your systems, your governance, risk, compliance, your non-executive directors, your advisory boards, etc. But they are not really connected with everything or how you bring all that together into an edge. So, and this is what happened. It is the board's habit to treat growth, cash controls, and reinventions as a separate work streams owned by different people. So reviewing in different meetings, with a different language, with a different urgency, right? So that structure feels organized, but often is a reason progress is slow because it's fragmented, as I mentioned, right? Different people, different meetings, different language, different urgencies, because the business experiences those pressures but this is what I'm trying to say. The business experience all those pressures at the same time. This is what I've been mentioning the whole week. But the teams are focused or funneled or tunneled in what is happening right now, right here, in a linear wave. And we mentioned this like a month end is coming in a week time, a week and a few days. Quarter end is coming at the same time. So you can imagine this is one of these events 4 times in a year that actually are very, very stressful, very time demanding, and very brain power demanding. So, and that is why I use the advisory board operating system. And I'm going to put in the screen right now because we are going to put all these process together today. So we talk about scaling is on the top in the commercial acceleration. We talk about predictability also on Tuesday about growth and capital. We talk about systems, which is the controls and resilience. We talk about on Wednesday, and yesterday we talked about clearing the fog in terms of what is next, the innovation, the transformation, the reinvention of the company. Because even if you are not a startup anymore and you are a company with many years of pedigree, you had to be relevant to your market because the market are changing, the socials are changing, the economies are changing, the technology is changing, and so on and so forth. So it's a constant reinvention like a startup. Now, it gives one thing the board or gives you a way to see the enterprise. Yes. So the question would be, can we scale without overloading leadership? Right? This is one thing because actually you don't want your leaders to be exhausted because then the capacity to operate is start to be constrained. So can you grow or can we grow the company without stabilizing the cash and value? And the other question you can ask is, can we trust delivery without executing rescue? Meaning actually, let's go and do this, and then you realize, oh, we are running out of working capital. Or if you go into the left section of the model here, can we reinvent before the market forces us to, right? So are we lagging into how these things are shaping or changing or going into a different direction, and then we stop being relevant to our audience, to our ideal customers, etc., etc. So, and when the answer is weak in one of these 4 areas, I use an international advisory board to quickly deploy targeted expertise to address the live constraint without being a consulting overhead, without a talent locked in, which sometimes happens. You spend months sometimes and hundreds of thousands of pounds or euros or dollars hiring the talent for this problem. And then you realize a year later that you're locked in with a talent that actually delivered his function or her function, but then is start to decline their input or the output of in terms of business um, requirements, because their expertise and experiences are in solving that particular issue and not the rest of the organization. So with this flexibility of the International Advisory Board, we refresh members every 6 months as the projects evolve, right? So let's look at three problems here that actually sustain this, and is all based on hard data from the UK governance frameworks, national statistics, corporate governance, and financial reporting. And I use them because it's very clear what is going on in the market, right? All this information, I'm 100% sure, exists in your country, in your geographies, and it has a parallel somewhere and somehow. But I love these particular examples because you can relate to them to your own organization, and you can translate that to how you can use them. And also the data, all this information is available in the public domain, so you can have a framework how to operate this, and then you bring it and localize to your country or your geography or your company. Now, let's look at three things here. Number one, the Office for National Statistics in UK says the stronger management practice scores are positively related to labor productivity, investment in research and development, and innovation. So what it means that weak management design does not stay in one lane. It damages performance across the whole system, right? This is one problem. Then we have a second problem, and if you remember, the 2024 UK Corporate Governance Code is already in effect, and it has a provision 29 that now applies to financial years beginning on or after January 1st, 2026, this year, so 2 months ago. Now, the Financial Reporting Council 2025 review, which is last year, says more than half of companies mentioned the new provision. That is last year, when it should be in effect this year. So the companies tells you that what is the report is telling you, that the reporting and controls agenda is already reshaping boards' expectations, because when the provision 29 starts begins to now this year 2026, the 2025 review already mentioned the new provision, right? So, and problem number three that you had to look into is that the cyber and AI are moving faster than many board routines. So in 2025, only 27% of businesses had a board member responsible for cybersecurity. And you will say, why a board member is responsible for cybersecurity, right? So we covered that very in the deep early this week, so you can watch that video. But the reports in January this year, 2026, shows that updates and 38 of 50 action plan commitments have been met, meaning actually the big majority already. So the delay, in short, is an operating choice, right? Because if you already have one board member responsible for cybersecurity and 38 of 50 action plans are already met, means that actually if you don't have that yet in your organization, it means that actually it's your choice, unfortunately. Now, why I mention all these things, it have nothing to do with us, because we don't have a non-executive board, we don't have an advisory board, we are an executive team, or I'm a founder. Well, it's exactly the same complexities, exactly the same issues, but actually with more and more constraints and less capacity to do that. And if you imagine this as a orchestra, you have four separate sections in the orchestra with four separate sheet scores, right? That have nothing to do one to the other. So everybody is very busy. They are very excellent musicians. They are doing very well their job, but the performance perhaps is not sounding very good because everybody is playing their own tune. So this is why it's important to bring a model like this one, where everything is played according to their own section and their own portion of the model at the time that they had to be played. And I'm going to disclose. I'm going to explain this now. So here's what I want boards to stop doing. So stop treating symptoms as a separate symptoms, right? So if you see scale is one thing, it's part of your predictability, is part of your edge, and is part of your systems. So slow growth may be a scale problem, or maybe also a predictability problem, or can be a system problem. So your governance, risk, compliance, your assets, your performances, or can be a system problem or an edge problem. So you haven't clarified yet what is the um, and what is these things that we mentioned yesterday in scaling. So you have a fog, a leadership fog, uncertainties, ambiguity. But if you have a very good idea what is going on, how you want to do it, and which is what is relevant, then that edge start to get more sharp, and then you can see where the things are going, and you can act with confidence, because once that fog is cleared, you know that you're not going or you're not heading to an edge or a cliff, right? So you have an edge, you have your competitive advantage again at its prime. So usually it's one weak section distorting the rest that is the problem. That is why this recap matters, not to repeat what happened during the week, is to identify which is in the live constraints of the organization and how you can address it. So as a board advisor, what I would propose to consider is the following. Number one, using this model, score the business across the four sections together, not in isolation. So take scale and ask whether growth depends on too few people. And take predictability on the far right and ask whether value creation is cash reliable. And underneath in the systems, ask whether delivery can be trusted. And on the edge section, your innovation, ask whether future relevance is being funded and governed. Yeah, you have to govern your future. Now, suggestion number two, once you have these scores, fix the lowest scoring section first. Fix the lowest scoring section first. So you have your scales, your predictability, your system, your edge. So which one is scoring low? Fix that one first, but do not ignore the adjacent one. Yeah, a scale problem often sits next to predictability problems, right? So they are associated one to the other. And a system problem, which is a governance, risk, compliance, etc., often sits next to the edge problem. Yeah, you cannot govern what is coming next if you don't have a good governance in place. And the board should sequence work, not scatter it. So it's not like, we identified a problem, now we're going to isolate this problem and bring a focus team or a committee or subcommittee to fix this. Don't do that. It is a whole system. It's an ecosystem that works together. So you build capability as a modular bench, right? So this is suggestion number three. Most companies do not need permanent payroll for every specialist gap on day one. So when you identify and you score the lowest section first, you don't need to go and hire people especially and specifically for this. You need a sharper judgment around the current bottlenecks, right? And this is perhaps in your own organization already, or we bring in an international advisory board that actually can refresh their teams every 6 months. So the way to refresh that capability is as the constraints moves, right? So actually we fix this, so then we don't need this capability in 6 months time, which can change it for something that's more relevant for the next one to fix. That is what properly use of an advisory board gives you in the organization. So the biggest shift, if you may, I want you from this week, is move from commentary to operating design. A board that only describes its challenge will always feel late. It's like a lagging in time. So it seems that everything is a day late. So a board that can diagnose the system, add the missing capability, and review progress against a common model starts to move earlier and with more confidence. So what do you gain then working with me? Is three things: outcomes, differentiators, and risk reduction. In terms of outcomes, the advisory board operating system gives the board a single join-up model for scale, predictability, systems, and edge. So decisions stop competing with each other and start to compound to each other. In terms of differentiator, I do not default to a single expensive hire or a single oversized consulting engagement. I help boards build an international advisory board around the live constraint, bringing in the right strategic, operating, and sector expertise in a fraction of the time, then refreshing that bench as the project evolves. And in terms of risk reduction, the model forces evidence, owners, cadence, and escalation into each section. That reduces founder dependencies, capital fog, control theater, and strategic drift before they harden into value loss. So, and that is the recap of the whole model. So scale without predictability is a strain. Predictability without system is fragile, and system without an edge are static, so you stall, and the edge without system is literally a kind of a chaos. Now, that's why boards needs all four. So one action you can take home today and is doable in 30 minutes or less: score your board from 1 to 10 on scale, predictability, systems, and edge. Then circle the lowest number and ask what capability is missing around that section. So let's pause here for today and reconvene next week. And if you are a founder, a leadership team, an investor-backed executive group, and you want help applying the full advisory board operating system, set up a 30-minute call so I can understand your position today and how an independent international advisory board looking from the outside in your organization can help you and your team without stepping in your toes, without a traditional consulting overhead, and without a public theater. So have a fantastic weekend. Have a great day today.